Hello, this is Tamer with your Euro Dollar analysis for Friday, April 24th, 2015. While price moved towards the upside as expected, we still don't have enough pattern data to place logical labels on the new subdivisions. Nonetheless, the larger degree waves are still behaving as expected. We're updating our accounts to reflect the most recent price action and to present tighter targets and invalidation points. So moving right ahead to our main count on the daily chart, we see that the bigger picture sees that the euro has completed a multi-year decline in cycle wave X, which formed a zigzag labeled primary waves A, B, and C, where primary wave C formed an impulse labeled intermediate waves 1 through 5. Intermediate wave 5 formed an impulse labeled minor waves 1 through 5, where minor wave 1 formed an impulse labeled minute waves 1 through 5, minor wave 2 formed an expanded flat labeled minute waves A, B, and C, retracing 38.2% of minor wave 1. Then minor wave 3 formed an impulse labeled minute waves 1 through 5, reaching 261.8%, the length of minor wave 1. Then minor wave 4 formed a contracting barrier triangle labeled minute waves A, B, C, D, and E, and finally minor wave 5 formed an impulse labeled minute waves 1 through 5, reaching exactly 61.8%, the length of minor wave 3. This count also sees that the euro is now starting a significant uptrend in cycle wave Y, which may be unfolding as a zigzag labeled primary waves A, B, and C, where primary wave A is forming an impulse labeled intermediate waves 1 through 5, and within it, intermediate wave 1 is forming an impulse labeled minor waves 1 through 5. Minor wave 1 formed a quick and swift impulse, and minor wave 2 formed a zigzag labeled minute waves A, B, and C, retracing 90% of minor wave 1. This count expects the euro to start moving towards the upside in minor wave 3, which will be confirmed by movement above 1.1052, and at 1.1474, minor wave 3 would reach 161.8%, the length of minor wave 1, then at 1.2064, it would reach 261.8% of its length. This wave count is invalidated by movement below 1.0458, as minor wave 2 may not move beyond the start of minor wave 1. Now going to the main hourly count, which sees that minor wave 3 is forming an impulse labeled minute waves 1 through 5, where minute wave 1 formed a leading diagonal labeled minute waves 1 through 5, and minute wave 2 formed a double zigzag labeled minute waves W, X, and Y, retracing a bit short of 61.8%, the length of minute wave 1, and it's most likely complete. We see here that minute wave Y ended 6 pips before the end of minute wave W, which is not unusual for a combination correction, as those tend to be more sideways in nature. This count expects the euro to be moving towards the upside in minute wave 3. At 1.0995, minute wave 3 would reach 100%, the length of minute wave 1, then at 1.1198, it would reach 161.8% of its length. This wave count is invalidated by movement below 1.0666, as this is the start of minute wave 3. If price moves below this point, then our next invalidation point is at 1.0520, as minute wave 2 may not move beyond the start of minute wave 1. Now let's take a look at our alternate daily count, which sees that intermediate wave 5 of primary wave C is still unfolding toward the downside as an impulse labeled minor waves 1 through 5. Minor wave 1 formed an impulse, and minor wave 2 retraced a bit more than 61.8% of its length so far. This count expects the euro soon to continue moving toward the downside in minor wave 3, and this will be initially confirmed by movement below 1.0520, with further confirmation below 1.0462. At 1.0113, intermediate wave 5 would reach 61.8%, the length of intermediate wave 1, then at 0.9542, it would reach 100% of its length. This wave count is invalidated by movement above 1.1035 as minor wave 2 may not move beyond the start of minor wave 1. Now let's delve a bit deeper into the hourly count of this alternate view, which sees that minor wave 2 has formed a zigzag labeled minute waves A, B, and C, retracing just over 61.8% of minor wave 1 so far, and is either complete or very near completion. Minute wave A formed a leading diagonal labeled minute waves 1 through 5, then minute wave B formed a double zigzag labeled minute waves W, X, and Y, and finally minute wave C has reached a bit over 61.8% the length of minute wave A, so it's either complete or near completion. So this count expects the euro soon to start moving toward the downside in minor wave 3, and this will be initially confirmed by movement below 1.0666 with further confirmation below 1.0520. So at 1.0384, minor wave 3 would reach 100% the length of minor wave 1, then at 1.0066 it would reach 161.8% of its length. Please note that these are estimates at this point, and we have to wait for price to reach our confirmation points before we can produce more accurate target levels. This wave count is invalidated by movement above 1.1035 as minor wave 2 may not move beyond the start of minor wave 1. That's all for our analysis for this week. I wish you profitable trading and see you next time.